Welcome to Toyota Time with Timmy the Toolman and Sean. Today we have a special returning guest, my buddy Aaron, who hails from Napa. And what we're going to do today is we're going to do a tune-up on his FZJ-80 Land Cruiser, a 1994 FZJ-80 Land Cruiser. And so what we're going to replace is we're going to replace the spark plugs, the spark plug wires, the distributor cap, the rotor, and we're gonna replace the air filter. So Aaron and I have never done this job on an FZJ-80, but we think we can figure it out. It doesn't look too complicated. So first, let's show you all the parts we got for this job. So here's the parts. We have the big old air cleaner. There's the part number right there. We have our 6 spark plugs. Here's one of the part numbers. We have the distributor cap. We have the spark plug wires. We have this little round gasket that helps make a seal of the distributor cap with the distributor. And then we have our rotor assembly. And that's all the parts. All right, you've seen the parts. Now let's get out to the engine and get this job done. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna disconnect the air filter cover, and we're going to get this air tube disconnected so we can have an easier time getting to the spark plug wires that run underneath these covers. So the first thing Aaron's going to do is undo these 3 straps that hold the cover on. There's one there, there's one back here, and then there's one there. Then he's going to unscrew this wing nut. Next, he's going to use my Milwaukee Ratchet with a 10mm socket, and he's going to loosen the 2 clamps that hold the air tube to the throttle body and the air cleaner assembly. Okay, now with both those clamps loose, he should be able to pull this cover free of the air tube. You do have to take this cruise control cable out of the little keeper here. Now he should be able to pull this cover off. We're not disconnecting the mass airflow sensor connector because we don't think we have to. We can now get the air filter out, no problem. So we're going to drop a new one in. So just drop it in there, and we'll just put the air cleaner cover back on. I'm not going to tighten it back up just yet. Now we're just going to pull the air tube off the throttle body. He's got to disconnect that throttle cable connection right there and slide it off. The next thing we have to do is we have to disconnect these 2 ventilation tubes. You can just slide these off. This one actually goes to the PCV valve, and those are out of our way. You could actually pull it out of the way more if you want. Just pull it off here, lay it on top of the engine, get it out of your way. The spark plug wires live right underneath front cover and a rear cover, and they're held on by these little 10mm bolts. So Aaron's just going to get on there with my Milwaukee and zip out 2 bolts for the front cover, 2 bolts for the rear cover, and we're going to be able to expose more of the spark plug wires that run along the top of the valve cover. This transmission kickdown table is getting in the way of a straight shot, so we're going to try to get underneath it with a 1/4" ratchet and see how that works. There we go.
Go.
Okay, the back cover is coming off, and then we'll get the front cover off. Okay, both covers are off. This wiring harness is held on in a couple places with a couple 10mm bolts. There's one here in the front. You can see the oil fill cap is right here. And then there's another one about midway down, right next to the throttle body. So he's going to remove both of those with the Milwaukee Ratchet 10mm socket. The spark plug wire furthest to the rear, closest to the firewall, is going to have an obstruction. This heater valve with the heater hoses is going to be in the way, so we're going to disconnect 2 10mm bolts that attach the heater valve to the firewall to where we can get a little bit of movement out of that assembly to have an easier time getting that back spark plug wire off of the spark plug. Now you can see that there's a lot more movement in order for us to be able to get that back spark plug wire off. Okay, we're going to start from the front and work backwards. What Aaron is going to use is this Lyle spark plug wire puller. It's adjustable. You can adjust the angle to wherever you want. So see how you can change the angle? So it's kind of a nice set. This is a tune-up, and we're going to be replacing wires, so we don't really care about messing up the wires. But say you're doing some work and you wanted to reuse the wires, what you want to make sure you do is you grab a hold of the boot and don't pull on the wire. So when you're removing these, you either want to use your hand and pull on top of the boot to disconnect it from the spark plug, or you use the special tool to pull up on it. There we go, there's number one. There's number two, number four, number five. He's gonna push the heater hoses towards the firewall and get on there.
There it is.
Okay, he's got all 6 of them loose. And then now he's just gonna pull all the spark plug wires out of the spark plug tubes. Okay, we're just gonna lay this out of the way. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna replace all 6 spark plugs. These spark plugs happen to be a 5/8 size, and I have this nice set from Gear Ranch. There's multiple size extensions that are permanently attached. They're swivel connections. It makes it easy when you don't have a straight shot to get onto the spark plug. This is pretty straightforward. We don't really need the swivel for this application, but some vehicles this would come in very handy. And they're magnetized, so when you get it loose, it will pull out the spark plug. Those ones with the rubber grommet work, but they wear out over time. The magnet is never going to wear out. So we'll drop this in there, get it onto the spark plug. Lefty loosey. This is usually not the case. This is coming out stiff the whole way, which has me a little bit concerned. I've never had a spark plug come out like this.
I told you, this is an airplane engine.
That took a lot of force to come out, man. Well, I don't see any aluminum threads on there. That's good. So you get the idea. We're just gonna slowly work our way back towards the firewall and get all these spark plugs out. So when it comes to the very back one, it looks like it's easiest to pull the heater hoses forward to get the extension in the spark plug socket behind, and then get on there with your ratchet. I might be able to zip that out now with the Milwaukee. And there we go, they're all out. So when you take your spark plugs out of the box, you'll notice that it has either a cardboard sleeve or a plastic sleeve like this one. The spark plugs come pre-gapped. And what this sleeve does is protects the electrodes from getting bent or damaged when they're shipped from the supplier or when they're stocked on the shelf. That's why they have these sleeves here. If you want to, you can check the spark plug gap and double check that it's okay. But ever since I learned this about spark plugs, I haven't bothered. As long as the sleeve is intact, I'm just betting that the factory did the proper gap, and I could be confident that it's going to be correct. So you slide the sleeve off, you get it hooked up to your magnetic spark plug socket, and then you go into the cylinder. And the key to this is making sure you can get it started by hand. Do not immediately get on here with a ratchet and cross thread the spark plug into the head, because then you will be very sad and unhappy. So make sure that this thing threads in nice and easy by hand first. Okay, so you got the idea. We're gonna get all 6 of them started, and then we're gonna break out our torque wrench. So the torque spec for these spark plugs is 14 foot-pounds or 168 inch-pounds. We're deciding to use my foot-pound torque wrench. We're gonna get them torqued to spec. And you get the idea. We're gonna torque the last 3. Now that we have the spark plugs in, we're gonna work on the distributor cap. The distributor cap is held on by 3 8mm bolts. There's one here, there's one here, and then there's one somewhere under here, and you just have to feel for it. So what I'm gonna use to get these loose is I have a couple short 1/4 inch extensions. I have an 8mm socket and my little 1/4 inch ratchet, and I'm going to get all 3 of those bolts loose. I'm also going to just disconnect this electrical connector here and get that out of the way. And I've found the same thing with other distributor caps. The bolts are part of the distributor cap, so you can't even pull it out. So you just loosen it to where it's free of the distributor and then go to the next one. Okay, that one's free. Now I gotta work on the one down below that I have to do by feel. Okay, they're all loose, and I should be able to pull this sucker off just like that. If you're wondering why we kept all the spark plug wires connected to the distributor cap, it's so we can have an easier time matching up the new wires to the new distributor cap. We're going to copy this. So the one thing that I still have to disconnect is the wire that goes to the coil. So with these spark plug wires, you have to get underneath this tab, and it helps to have a little pick tool. You get underneath it and pick up, and then you can pull it off. And then now we have the distributor cap and the wires as one unit. Here's the brake master cylinder, here's the coil right here, and the tab that you have to pull up is facing the motor. So you get your pick tool underneath there, just like that. Now we have our coil wire disconnected. I don't know if the video will be able to show this, but the new wires are marked. There's a 1 on the furthest most to the left. The next one has a 3. The next one in line has a 5. The next one in line has a 6. Then it's number 4. The 4 is upside down. And then the last one in the harness has a 2. And so if you look at the distributor cap is marked with numbers too. So there's 1, 4, 2, 6, 3, and 5. And then looking at the old one, you can actually see, especially if you have OEM wires, I could still see that this wire has a 3, and then if I clean off the distributor cap, I can see there's a 3 there. What we're gonna do is we're now gonna get all these plugged in. So Aaron's gonna match these up and plug them in to the proper spot. So we have these side by side in the same orientation. Aaron's now gonna plug them in. He's gonna plug the number 1 in right there.
Click.
He's gonna plug the number 4 in there. He's gonna plug the number 2 there. He's gonna plug the number 6 there. He's going to plug the number 3 here and the number 5 right here. Okay, so now we have all our wires connected to the distributor cap. So you can compare the old wire and distributor cap to the new one. Make sure you have the orientation right. Now Aaron's going to connect the coil wire to the distributor cap. So for this coil wire, there's 2 distinct sides. The side that you can slide this connector off like that, this is the side that connects up to the distributor, and the other side connects up to the coil. So Aaron is now going to plug the coil wire in there. Okay, he's got it clicked. Now we can carry this over back to the engine. Before we put the new distributor cap on, there's a couple things we still have to replace. We're going to replace the rotor, and then we have to take off this rubber seal that seals the distributor cap to the distributor. So Aaron's gonna pull off the rotor, and then he's gonna pull off this rubber gasket. There's 2 distinct sides to this gasket that seals the distributor cap to the distributor. It's got a flat side, and then it's got a little ridge side. The flat side faces the distributor. The ridged side faces the distributor cap.
There's a tab right here, which is notched out in the distributor area where the gasket goes. And there's a little inlet, a little hole on the gasket that is meant to fit here to hold it on. So that goes there.
So you could see the little tab where Aaron put it. It fits in this little notch, and then you just got to make sure it's fully seated all the way around the circumference. Now Aaron's going to put on the new rotor. It could only go on one way because there's a flat side to the shaft, so you can't mess this up.
Boom.
Good job, Aaron. You must be a certified mechanic. Not like Timmy the Toolman, YouTube certified. So what we did is we put the wires underneath the throttle cable. Now we're gonna get the distributor cap on. What we notice is you can't mess this up because of the spacing of the bolts that hold the distributor cap to the distributor. You have two that are closer together and then one that's kind of by itself, and that's the one that goes on the bottom. Another dead giveaway is the way you matched up the wiring to the old wiring, and it's going to want to route this way. So we've got it on in the right orientation. You slide it over and then you get your 8mm bolt started. Got that one started on the top. Got the other top one started. And then I'm going to have to reach under here blind and get this one started. So we have all the 8mm bolts started, and the torque spec we're going to use for this is that old German spec we love, good and tight. So this is a very small fastener. Choke up on your 1/4 inch ratchet and cinch it up and call it good. Do not break it off. Okay, they're all tight. Now that we have the distributor cap on, we're going to reconnect this electrical connector right here. Pull back, make sure it's good. Now we have to get the coil wire attached to the coil. The connector faces towards the motor. You slide it on and snap it in place. So we're going to go for the rearmost one first. Get this one slid in. You have to push the heater hoses towards the firewall and slide that sucker in. Okay, gonna get the other ones started. This one I'm gonna take out of its keeper. That one in, this one in, this one in, and get that one in. Okay, so they're all looking like they're in place. And then when you get these pushed on, you'll feel it snap over the top of the spark plug. So you push down and you feel it pop on, and then you're good. Okay, it looks like we're good. So now we're going to get our two 10mm bolts that hold the wiring harness to the top of the valve cover. We're going to get those in. And again, we're going to use that German spec of good and tight. I'm just using my little shorty ratchet so I don't get a lot of leverage. Now we're going to get the two covers that go over the wires in place. Again, no real torque spec for this. The German spec of good and tight is going to be good for us. We'll get the rear one in place. We'll tighten the back one up first, and then we're going to have to get the little shorty on the front one. Okay, they're both tight. Next, we're going to get our heater hose valve connected back to the firewall. And guess what? No torque value for this either. Good and tight. Okay, those are good and tight. Next, we're going to get these two ventilation hoses connected. This one will reconnect to the PCV valve. This one will reconnect to the throttle body, and then to the top of the valve cover. Now we just have to get our air tube reconnected. So with the air box cover still loose, I'm gonna get underneath the throttle cable. I'm gonna hook up this side first, and then I'm gonna slide it onto the throttle body. Just like so. And then now I'm gonna get the air cover back lined up. I'm gonna snap these in place. I'm gonna get the wing nut back on. And then lastly, I'm gonna tighten up these clamps with my Milwaukee. That feels good. Okay, it's back on. You want to make sure that this throttle cable is right here in this little keeper right here. And this cruise control cable fits in this little keeper right here. And I think we're all done. So once you get done with the job, you just want to make sure you look very carefully on the top of the motor for any tools, any rags, any leftover parts that you might have forgot to put back on the engine. So just do a good double check before you start it up. And we were successful! Yay!
Yay!
All right, we're all done with this job. As you saw, not too difficult to do a tune-up on an FZJ-80 Land Cruiser. It's fairly straightforward. If you follow the steps we showed you, you should have no problems doing this job. This is something that any beginning do-it-yourselfer can do, no problem at all. If you're lucky to own an FZJ-80 Land Cruiser like Aaron does.
Yeah, buddy.
I would say there's nothing really to reiterate about what we found with this job. The hardest thing was kind of feeling for that bottom bolt that holds the distributor cap to the distributor, but it's pretty easy to go by feel and feel the socket slipping over the head of that 8mm bolt, and then you get it loose. Not a big deal. I think the one thing that I want to make sure that you don't do is cross thread a spark plug into the head, because that would be a very bad thing, and you will be kicking yourself for a long time, because then you're going to have to fix that by putting some type of helicoil in there. You're going to have to drill it out. I've done it on my girlfriend's BMW, and it wasn't a whole lot of fun, so I don't highly suggest you get into that situation. Better to take your time, get a good spark plug socket that's magnetic, and make sure each spark plug starts by hand very smoothly. Not just a half turn, but make sure you could turn it in a long ways, and then you know that the threads are started right and you're not going to cross thread. That's the biggest mistake I could see a beginning mechanic do, is being a little impatient and cross threading the spark plug into the head. With all that said, we thank you for watching Toyota Time with Timmy the Toolman and Sean, and special returning guest Aaron. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. If you have any questions or comments, do that below. Take care. Bye bye. Sick mods, sick FZJ-80 Land Cruisers. Peace out. Bye bye. Happy wrenching.